China has slammed a new security alliance between Australia, the US and the UK. The Western allies have agreed to help Australia build a fleet of nuclear-powered submarines to boost security in the Indo-Pacific. Beijing says the partnership is extremely irresponsible and will intensify the arms race in the region.
With no public debate and little warning, Australia has announced it's going nuclear. It will not develop its own nuclear weapons, but will build a fleet of nuclear-powered submarines with America and Britain's help. The new partnership, called the AUKUS Alliance, aims to promote security and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific region. The three nations did not name any country, but the move is seen as an effort to counter China.
Our world is becoming more complex, especially here in our region, the Indo-Pacific. This affects us all. The future of the Indo-Pacific will impact all our futures. To meet these challenges, to help deliver the security and stability our region needs, we must now take our partnership to a new level.
The submarines will allow Australia's troops to travel longer and more quietly and strike targets far from the coast. Leaders have stressed they will only be powered by nuclear reactors and not armed with nuclear weapons. The three-nation alliance will also boost cooperation in areas including artificial intelligence and cyber technologies.
But let me be clear, Australia is not seeking to acquire nuclear weapons or establish a civil nuclear capability. And we will continue to meet all our nuclear non-proliferation obligations.
As tensions with China increase, the pact is also seen as a way for the US to increase its influence in the region. Next week, President Joe Biden will host the first face-to-face meeting of the Quad, an alliance with Australia, Japan and India.
Let's get the reaction from Australia and China, and we'll start with Danielle Robertson in Sydney. Danielle, a major boost for Australia's defence arsenal.
Yeah, Australia is now really embarking on the most significant changes to its defence in decades. The country is turning to its oldest allies to boost its military with nuclear submarines. The United States is handing over its submarine secrets, and the only time it's ever done that before was with the UK in 1958. So this is a big development for Australia. The pact between Australia, the UK and the United States was announced today, and it is really being seen as a show of diplomatic strength that aims to counter China. Now, this deal also aims to boost security and prosperity in the region, and the submarines are known to travel long distances, to stay underwater for long periods of time, and they don't need to be refuelled for their 30-year lifespan. Those submarines are going to be built in South Australia, and the Prime Minister did reiterate, though, that the deal will not include nuclear weapons. So this is a massive step for Australia, a big deal between these three countries that is going to boost Australia's military effort, and the first future fleet is going to be seen on the waters in about a decade.
Danielle, this will sort of tie with the US, bring them closer, in fact. The new deal, though, is also causing some friction.
Yeah, that's right. This new deal does mean that a $90 billion submarine deal with France has now been scrapped. So a pact between Paris and Canberra is now written off, which did lead to a bitter response from the French government. Now, the fact that Australia has gone ahead with this deal, despite risking offending the French government, does show that Australia does really see that the security landscape in this region has changed. Now, this is going to have implications for France. Of course, it's going to have financial implications. They will have less investment and less jobs in the naval industry. And it's not only France. Of course, there are concerns that tensions are going to escalate between Australia and China, China being Australia's biggest trading partner. Australia has offered an open invitation to the Chinese President Xi Jinping for talks, but this, of course, comes at a time when high-level talks between the two nations have been frozen and tensions have been escalating for some time. Now, Australia signing this deal does really entrench this country as now being seen as opposing China's assertiveness, and this is really going to have economic and military ramifications for years to come.
Yeah, many thanks for that. Danielle Robertson speaking to us from Sydney.
For the reaction from Beijing, Olivia Xiong joins us live now. Olivia, China's not mincing its words in slamming this pact.
Absolutely. To Beijing, this is clear provocation and this is a military threat, even though the leaders of the three countries did not explicitly mention China when announcing this new security arrangement. We have seen that the intent was clear, and so we've seen Beijing react pretty strongly. We've seen the Chinese Foreign Ministry today saying about the AUKUS deal that it seriously damages regional peace and stability, and that this will intensify the arms race, adding that the countries are also undermining the non-proliferation treaty. What's also concerning China is that it's viewing this as countries now banding together and making a concerted effort to contain it. And so we see the Foreign Ministry once again saying that countries should not form partnerships that target third countries, and it has made the call once again for them to abandon its Cold War mentality.
美英向澳大利亚出口高度敏感的核潜艇技术，再次证明他们将核出口作为地缘政治博弈的工具，采取双重标准，这是极其不负责任的行径。
Now, in an editorial, the Communist Party-linked Global Times cast doubt on whether Australia's nuclear-powered submarines would actually really not carry any nuclear weapons and accused Washington of, quote, losing its mind by trying to rally allies against China. It said that these countries are messing up the wall, but perhaps in a show of confidence also asked at the end of that piece who it thought was more capable of withstanding such global chaos.
And Olivia, what does this mean then for China's ties with the three countries down the road?
Well, it's hard to see any easing of tensions with this latest move. China has seen an escalation of tensions with these three countries over a period of time. In particular, today we see a sharp warning towards Australia, where we have seen ties being tense as China has taken issue with Australia's foreign policy towards it. There have also been tensions over trade, and there are questions on whether this latest move will have a further impact on that. And we do know that China is Australia's biggest export destination as well. Security-wise, we've also seen very strong language being used by Beijing. That same Global Times editorial said Australia has now turned itself into an adversary of China by siding with the US, and it advised Australia to not think that it is capable of intimidating China, adding that if there is a clash between the militaries of both countries in the Taiwan Strait or the South China Sea, that Australian military targets will be targeted by the Chinese army. The question is also what happens with China-US ties. We had seen President Xi Jinping have a phone call with his US counterpart, Joe Biden, just last week. It's their first phone call in 7 months after talks between the two countries had reportedly reached a stalemate. There had been talk of cooperation and avoiding conflict, but with this latest move, there is a big question mark on whether cooperation can really progress, because we do have to remember President Xi said, yes, cooperation can take place, but both countries have to respect each other's core interests for that to happen.
Olivia, thank you for that. Olivia Xiong there in Beijing.